Welcome back to That's the Ticket on WTC TV. My name is Paul Anand from the Wrestling Card Price Guide. I'm here with Mr. Ben Woooo, and today we're talking WrestleMania 38. It's interesting because the last time we did one of these, we said, well, let's do a modern, something a little more recent. And I said, well, I always like 31, the heist of the century, Seth coming out. And you said, well, I want to do 38 because I was at that one and it was a big one. So we said, well, let's do them both. And we're going to combine them into one. And we kind of got our wires crossed. And we thought, no, let's just deal with them separately, but they have quite a few things in common. And again, this one's particularly cool because you were at it, so you can give us some firsthand experience. So just quickly, I'll set it up and then I'll let you roll with it, Ben. WrestleMania 38, April 2nd and 3rd, 2022 at the AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. Main event being Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns for both belts. At this point, Brock had one of the belts, I think it was Universal or maybe the other way around. The other one had WWE. And this was the big unification match for both belts. What's interesting, buddy, is that on our last show, our main event was Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns,
Yeah.
7 years earlier when Seth came out and monkeyed up that one. And yet it gives you an idea of who the dominant guys were from that period to now, because here they are again. And they met several times. So that was the night two main event. The night one main event was really interesting because we had stunning Steve Austin, not stunning, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus KO in a no holds barred match to end night one, and that was a great match. Then, of course, night two we had Roman Reigns defeating Brock Lesnar to become the undisputed champ, and if I recall correctly, he holds it for quite some time after that. Um, the women's title match, Bianca Belair won the title off of Becky Lynch, and then she ended up holding it for over a year, 420 days. So we'll talk about that match in a little more detail because that seems to be the match of the card in sort of my research. Um, the one I remember was Sami Zayn and the those Jackass guys, Johnny Knoxville, that
Yeah.
prop match, and people thought that was silly. I thought it was great. Anything that
Yeah.
entertains me was always good. And what else? Madcap Moss won the Battle Royal, the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. I just picked that name because I don't remember much about Madcap Moss. He was there, then he wasn't. And another interesting thing was that 76 years old, one Vince McMahon got into the ring, being the oldest guy ever to be in the ring at WrestleMania when he sort of came in at the end of the McAfee match, the Pat McAfee match. And so it was a great night. But you were there, man. So talk to me first about the ticket and then talk to me about that weekend and what was that all about?
Well, we got our wires crossed again. I was not there. I was at XL, but
Excellent.
so I was not at this one. But I will get to the ticket though, real quick. There's
Okay.
none in the PSA
Well, which
pop
one
reports.
is XL? XL is 35. No.
XL is 40, right? That's the one in
Right,
Philly
right, right,
with
right, right.
with Reigns and Cody. That's the
That's
one
the
I was
fin
at, and
that's
I
the
was at
finish
last
that's the
year's.
finish the story one.
Yes,
Right.
but anyway, I
But
think
you
that
but
this
you were
one.
keen about this one. You were talking about WrestleMania 38 as one of your
Well,
favorites.
you wanted something kind of newer and
Yeah.
maybe a little farther back, and that kind of included a lot of the current guys right now and what's happening. And I thought this one particularly was important in that it led into lots of storylines right now and included some guys. It was historically significant on the old rule versus the new rule here. Now,
Hang on,
let's
what do you
get
mean
to
by
the
that?
ticket, though. There's no PSA tickets, not one in the
When you say
PSA
old
pop
rule,
report.
new rule, what are you referring to? The
Well,
PSA?
so Vince McMahon, this is the last time had
Oh,
control. So not only was it his last match at 76, but this was the last time he had creative control. He gave it up.
I
And
see. Right, right, right. So it was
Triple
over.
H came in, if you recall, you look at
Yeah.
it, he said, "Welcome to WrestleMania," put his boots down. He had some heart stuff going on before. So this is kind of a big transition. Vince is out. And that match with him and McAfee got a lot of flack, but that's wrestling and storyline. And Vince went out awesome. He went out, he won the match. His protege, Austin Theory, he was like the guy with the protege, creating a heel. He loses. Vince becomes the Superman and somehow beats McAfee. McAfee's still relevant later. He's bringing him in. And then Austin comes in and he faces Austin face to face. Austin has a beer with him and, of course, gives him the stunner and ends it. It goes out poetic. He goes out poetically. So I think that was a huge transition, a huge point to make about this WrestleMania. Um, the ticket, back to the ticket, zero in the pop report and PSA.
Why is that?
There's two. Well, because that was a critical time for digital to turn into digital and to have it on the phone, plain and simple. And I think they were very tight that time because there's 65,000 people both nights.
But you could request
Sorry,
a
it's a little
ticket if you
dark in
wanted one.
here.
Couldn't you
Hopefully you
ask
can
for a
see
hard
me.
copy?
Okay, I look like a ghost. I'm looking at the thing here. The sun just went down. But um, you know, this is also they've had two nights ever since then.
Right.
This WrestleMania.
But
So
could you not request a hard ticket? Would they not give you one if you wanted one?
they I don't know. I didn't go. I'm assuming not because I don't see any. I mean, I have one. I have one of the second night, and I'm looking for the first night. I have the only one of the second night I've ever
And
seen.
that's the only one you've seen on something that's only like 4 years old that had
Yeah,
65,000 people at it. So they obviously didn't make a lot of them.
right. Yeah, they didn't make a lot of them. So, um, another couple other things. Obviously, the Cody Rhodes coming back is huge. He went from his cartoon character, and he came in as the American Nightmare to the music and came out of the ground and
Was that
gave
his
homage to
reappearance
his dad.
from AEW? Was that the first time we saw him at that WrestleMania?
No, he was Stardust or whatever he was
No, no. I mean,
prior, right?
when he came over, when he came back from AEW,
Yeah, I
was it
believe
here?
so.
It was at
Yeah,
this
because I
WrestleMania.
think he
Okay.
left in 2016 and then came back in 2018 as the American Nightmare with his song, with his red, white, and blue, with the moniker, with the American Nightmare. Facing Seth Rollins, which is a huge star. And, very awesome. If you go back and look at it, he gave homage to his dad. He did the bionic elbow punches, the elbow, did the
Now,
setup for
Ben, is
kind
that
of
the
his
one where he
icon.
had the torn tricep? No, because if he just came
No,
back, he
that
wouldn't
was
have
a
had that yet,
later.
right? But
No,
that
that
was against
wasn't.
Rollins again.
Right,
Yeah,
right. That was a different match, and he did win that too. But
yeah,
this was his return. He set up his closer, which is kind of the Holy Trinidad. You want to look symbolically, but three crossroads, right?
yeah, yeah.
And that's how he beat Roman Reigns and XL. Three of them right in a row. I think he did two, and then he did the bionic elbow. And then gave him a third one and lights out. So huge buildups. Kind of when they started the Cody push. Um, they put a lot of people over to what's now today. And you got Cody. It seems so weird that they finally put people look at it as finally they put Roman Reigns over, and this is only in 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But he won the thing and unified everything against Lesnar, and it didn't really hurt Lesnar because of how it happened. And again, I think this is to Vince McMahon and his great storytelling. They didn't make Lesnar lose 100%, 100%. He got hit with a belt in the head.
Right.
Roman still gave him a spear after they went back and forth, even after that for a little bit, which was kind of weird. If you look online and you watch it, it is kind of strange because they beat the hell out of each other with all their finishing moves, everything great. And then Hyman, came in and said, "This is your time," and then just gave him one spear and
Was that
he
the one
beats him.
with the bulldozer or the big heavy machinery? That might have been a SummerSlam. I have a recollection of Brock and Roman, and I think it was Brock that came out in like a big bulldozer or something like that.
No,
No, that
that
was a different
wasn't
one.
this one. This one was kind of they Brock was just kind of a weird character because you know Paul was obviously with both of them, right? And then he picked Roman Reigns' side. And then without Paul, they kind of made Brock as this hokey, hey, I'm just laughing and smiling and I'm a cowboy and I'm happy go lucky, which I think also kind of broke down made his loss like more believable, and then you could easily bring back his indestructible beast because he really wasn't quite that character at the time.
Right.
So
Right.
I thought very interesting characters and storytelling and setups on this one, and those were some really big key points. And then
Well,
you
it's
touched,
interesting because they're doing that now with Brock, with that sort of
yeah, that's what I'm
that
saying.
swerve retirement at WrestleMania, and then he comes
Yeah,
out
it's
to come
just
back and dummy Oba, which I thought was great. Some people think that why would they do that? And I'm thinking, why not? Who else can believably destroy Obafemi other than Brock?
well,
You know,
yeah, I agree. But the weird thing about it is how convincingly he lost in
yeah,
WrestleMania.
yeah,
That's what I don't get. Like he got destroyed? Was he not
Well,
ready? Did they take him?
it's entirely possible he did intend to retire that night, and that's what it was until a couple of days later, everyone sat around and said, yeah, no, maybe we can milk this for a little more. I'm not so
Yeah,
sure how much this fake retirement was planned. Like the Mark Henry one,
right,
he admits that that was always the plan. Him and Vince said, we're going to take it right to the edge and get him in tears that you're leaving, and then you're going to destroy Cena. And that worked. But I wonder how
right,
much of this was a knee-jerk reaction to what was going on. Again, I don't mind it. I don't, I've been watching wrestling all my life, and when it comes to storylines, Ben, I never get upset by
right.
something that I don't like the way it's being written because it's wrestling, And it's funny you talk about Cody, and then obviously they established Cody. Here he is, and we didn't know coming back from AEW how much of an impact he would have, and how much of a push he would get. And then of course a year or two later was the one where it was supposed to be Cody against Cody won the Royal Rumble. They got the first Royal Rumble. It was supposed to go against Roman Reigns, and then Rock came in and said, "No, instead I'm going to fight Roman, not you." And then the crowd, or not the fans online went apeshit crazy. And that's the
Hmm.
first time I ever saw a reaction like that, that in social media and in the online world, to the point where it completely forced them to change the main event. Like there was no
Yeah.
way that people weren't going to get their Cody Rhodes main event. So they said, okay, we'll give it to you, but he's going to lose. And then they stretched this out for another year until he finally finished the story. But that's what wrestling is now. We work on long story arcs. And that's why I mentioned at the outset on the WrestleMania 31 that we did on our last episode, that was Brock and Roman. And then here we are 7 years later, right? And it's still Brock and Roman. Now, there was other
Yeah.
guys that were the champion, Daniel Bryan, and these kinds of people in between, but those were clearly the two sort of top names, Brock and Roman, throughout that era. And if you're talking 7, 8 years, that's almost a decade, So this has definitely been Roman Reigns' decade. Um, with Cody Rhodes sort of being a player and Seth Rollins being a player, and of course CM Punk being a player. But what was your thoughts on that main event? Did they go with the right result of Roman winning, or should Brock have won that match?
Well, I mean, you look at right now, Roman's a huge star. Roman was a heel. Again, I think they played it perfectly. Brock, they put him over. Paul was his guy. Brock was kind of, it could be justifiable that he could come back just crazy. He
Yeah,
got up from just impossible. He kicked out from impossible stuff, so they didn't hurt his indestructible thing. The only thing weird is that how he lost. It was just kind of a random. It was another spear that he's already been speared a bunch of times. After Paul kind of whispered in Roman's ear, "This is your time." Is one spear, and I mean he got out of Superman punches, and kicked out, get hit with a belt, but I don't think it. I think it was the right call. And look where we are now. It built
yeah,
Roman up. It built
yeah.
Roman against Cody. Roman, kind of inner company, inner bloodline, his little disagreements there. I mean, it all kind of works. And he's still relevant and the champion. And people are looking at him like he's on Mount Rushmore now. And believably so. Before I was like, what? Quit pushing this guy. I'm tired of this guy. But I'm starting to really enjoy him now, and that's kind of an ode to respect. I mean, when people are in it a long time that you don't necessarily like or connect with, but you start respecting them, I think they made the right call.
Yeah, well, he
I
got
mean, I
pushed
think
early. If you recall, he won Royal Rumbles,
right,
and
yeah,
people thought it was too soon. And then,
yes,
but I mean, it's the same thing with like what you mentioned about how you build characters, and it's the same thing with Brock beating the streak. I always thought that that was crazy. Why would you wreck something so perfect? Why would you take a guy that's 22 and 0 or 21 and 0 and fuck with it? That should have went
yeah,
till Taker retired, and then you've got something that can never be done again.
yeah,
But Vince smartly, thought to himself, well, no one's going to do 21 and 0 again, and look at what this does for Brock. Like Brock was a character when he was younger, went away, did UFC, came back. Now, with him ending the streak, he was firmly implanted as one of the top guys. Um, and that's what it was. So that by the time you get to a Roman Reigns, and he can beat a guy like Brock, and that's what it is, giving the impression that these guys are supermen, that these guys uh,
yes.
can't lose. And that's what
To
they're good at.
create another super to create another superhero, an indestructible superhero, they gotta beat another superhero. And it's kind of Flair's old line: to be the man, you
Got
gotta
to beat the
beat the
man.
man. And if Brock would have beat the Undertaker on his 30th, it wouldn't have been as effective.
Yeah,
He wouldn't have been. You would have ruined Taker's thing, and
yes,
Brock, it would have been useless. That
yes.
doesn't have the same effect. So I agree with you there. That you mentioned the Jackass match. I mean,
I liked it.
that was kind of the first. Well, way back in the day, they had midgets and all these things, right? And they kind of got away with that carnival stuff, and because they
Yeah.
wanted to make it more believable, I think, and just it was just looked as filler and carnival-y. But they brought that back, and look at last WrestleMania. You had evil guy with
Yeah,
all the midgets and the
yeah.
you know curses, and it kind of set that up for today. So I this, we can go over some other matches. I'm sure you have things written down, but these are some key ones. You talked about Becky Lynch and the over she gave, and that was a big
That
match.
was a big one because it was Bianca's first championship, and then she goes on to hold the title for like 420 days for
Yeah,
like
which is
a
like a
year.
record, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, and let me say this about Becky Lynch. She might not be my favorite female of all time, but she's been in three or four of the best female matches I've ever seen. I believe that her match with Charlotte at that Evolution pay-per-view, the first one, is one of the greatest women's matches I've ever seen.
yeah,
This match, whilst I don't remember the details of it in great specificity, I do remember, like just reading about it now, people said, well, that was the match of the weekend was the women's title match. Like people really grooved on that match. And it just showed the power of Becky being able to make people. And she's been doing that a lot lately, Sol Ruca, Lyra Valkyria. These people, they all owe a debt of gratitude to Becky because, obviously her greater days are behind her insofar as being world champion and things like that, being the man. But I think that's very significant that at this card, sort of Bianca Belair rose to the top with such prominence. Now, of course, she's pregnant, and we won't see her in the ring for a bit, but hopefully we'll have her back again. And you can always dust off Becky Lynch and have her come out whenever you need her to make somebody. She can't win enough IC titles if that means she's going to be making new superstars along the way.
yeah. No, I agree. She has a unique ability to cross over, and people want to like her. People want to, I think it's just kind of that weird. She has that weird persona where she's normally a heel and she wins dirty, but people want to like her and respect her because of how good she is in the ring, and how of a team player she is in her character. And I think this is you bring this up. I'm just talking off the top of my head. You're right about that because there was the build up. Blair, she keeps on losing. Becky dominates this match, and then finally she gets over. So it's like, yeah, everyone's cheering, and then I believe Becky uh, was like a good sport at the end. So it's kind of like the whole thing was really good.
Because then
And people want
Becky takes some time off. I don't know if this is when she went to have her baby, but then she comes back at
that
a
was
SummerSlam.
yeah.
I
This is
remember.
right after
Yeah, I
the
remember she came
baby.
back at
Yeah,
SummerSlam, surprisingly, and won, beat Becky, and beat Bianca for the title back, and that didn't go over so well. So sometimes it's hit and miss, but the general buzz about WrestleMania 38 was that was the match of the weekend, not the Brock Roman match, but the girls, that
yeah,
women's championship match. Vince McMahon, like we discussed, I didn't jot down all. It kind of gets boring when you just go line by line.
right.
Those were the main things. Um, that's about all I have for this one. Any other thoughts about WrestleMania 38?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, it's just kind of it was I think the biggest grossing. I think they had 20 just I think 2.2 billion subscribers in some degree, whether it be in person, pay-per-view, or live streaming through like Peacock and things. I think it's the one of the most successful money makers ever and watched. And due to a couple things, I think a lot of it is the production. You brought back Steve Austin. You brought in a mix of entertainment. Cody Rhodes came back. It was kind of the holy Trinidad, the last thing of the 2 out of 3 against Roman Reigns and Brock. I
Yeah,
think it's coming off of COVID, so people were starved to watch some things.
that's true
Becky
too.
Lynch came back. Um, these are the big points, and I think this carried us to a lot of where we're at right now with some of the characters that we already touched on.
Well, haven't
So
haven't haven't since that time, every subsequent WrestleMania did more business. Like we've entered into a very good cash period of time for TKO. It seems like they're making money hand over fist, and it seems like it was kind of annoying to me that Triple H would come on at the press conference and say, "Oh, we just did the biggest gate ever." It's like, yeah, dude, you're charging $8,000 a seat, you know. Um, but they've been and they've come under criticism for that, ticket prices and how they've run the business. You know, Vince used to he made the comment he wanted his product to be family oriented so that a family of four could go. Um, but that's difficult to do now. I mean, you went down with the boys, and it's not cheap. You know, we've got a soccer tournament of note that's starting this week up here, and I've been a World Cup fan my entire life, and I was looking forward to the time that I can go to a World Cup game, and I can't. The prices are insane. Like for the Team Canada game, you can pay $85,000 for a ticket. I'm not making this
Oh
shit up.
my.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't even know if I'm going to get to go see Rush again. It's still like, well, because you have to take a step back and say, wait a minute, I'm going to spend like uh, half a mortgage payment
Yeah,
on a 2 hour night out,
right.
and that's what wrestling has become. Like it's very expensive. We went down to F1 back in October, and that's known to be expensive. And it was like, wow, how do people do this? How do people go out every weekend, and enjoy themselves and spend this kind of money? And wrestling has become that. It's become, like if you want a good seat, a good ringside seat at a wrestling event, never mind WrestleMania, just a house show, it's thousands, in some cases tens of thousands.
Yeah,
It's
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 you
it's
look
nuts.
around at WrestleMania and I'm like, what the heck? These guys should not be spending this money. I don't think I should be spending this money.
Yeah, but you do
I'm
it for
doing
the
it.
time. You go with your buddies. It's an entire
Yeah,
weekend, Like I've only been to the two here in Toronto. I've never traveled for WrestleMania. And they were great, but they weren't, I don't remember them being expensive like things are now. Like you really have to pick and choose your sort of entertainment
yeah,
regardless
for
of
sure.
what you're going to do these days. Like I remember there was a dude that used to always be in the front row of wrestling, kind of a long-haired guy, and he had an older lady beside him. For years and years and years, we'd always be trying to spot this guy in the front row of every PLE. And we thought, well, what does this guy do for a living? How does he afford, to have the front row for every single pay-per-view? And I remember once there was a GCW show up here, and I was in line with a guy that traveled for wrestling. And he was telling me what he was spending per year on just going to these shows throughout North America. And it was mind-boggling to me. It's like, well, dude, how do you have the time to do this? And what affords you that kind of life that you have that kind of money to spend? Because it's really, really an expensive hobby. It's like buying the cards now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Try and buy a base set of 2026 tops. Gone are the days of 10, 20, 30, 50, even $100 sets out the window. You could be spending thousands to do this stuff now. It's quite remarkable.
Well, I think also what they did with this is they made it not just about this event. They this is kind of the start of this 2 day event. It was the start of meet and greet. You can pay to meet and greet people. Making it more of a almost like going to Disneyland. You can bring your
Right.
family, you can do other things to justify an entire weekend. And doing that, people can plan more and they can also maybe and budget more and also capture more people's money.
Yeah.
So more of a corporate type look at it. And that's what
I think
38, I
that's
mean, a
why they
38 is a change.
Yeah, I think that's why they doubled up on WrestleMania in Vegas again, just because of the
Oh
amount
yeah.
of cash that you can make. And it's very much a corporate business now, like TKO, their business is buying companies, making them worth more and then selling them. So I don't doubt that one day we're going to hear that the whole shoot match has been sold, be it to the Saudis or Liberty, the guys that run F1. There's some big players out there, and that's what it is. It's upsetting to me because I'm an old school fan, and I hate to be priced out of things. I hate to be priced out of buying my wrestling cards. I'd like to go see more live events if I could. That's why I go to the indie stuff at the church because it's just such great entertainment for low dollars. But yeah, you can see, I don't want to call it the corporatization of WrestleMania, but I see what you mean. The 2 day, the big event ahead of time, all the bells and whistles, like really, upping it a notch, if you will. And it's not like WrestleMania 3 wasn't big, wasn't spectacular, but really, really making it like we see it now,
Yeah.
all the bells and whistles. Anything else,
And
my
then
brother?
no, I think we covered the key points.
So
So
yeah, so we've done a couple of WrestleManias in a row. Um, we'll have to sit down and figure out what to do next. Maybe something outside of WWE, maybe a Starcade or maybe
yeah,
another promotion, But the whole idea of this show, guys, is just to have a little recap session on some of the bigger nights in wrestling history, tied to the ticket that Ben will have. He's got every WrestleMania ticket. He's got every significant event, or most of them anyways, notwithstanding robes and cards and boots and everything else that you got. But your ticket collection in particular, I mean, no one else has a ticket collection like you do for wrestling, that's for sure. I'm sure there are guys in other sports, but you're the man when it comes to this stuff. And our deal was like, well, let's focus on these tickets and put the story behind them. But
yeah.
yeah, so WrestleMania 38, April 2nd and 3rd, 2022 at the AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. It was a big one, and that's the ticket.
All right. Thanks.